People assume that I'm really creative because of my job, but what I think they don't realize is if I'm on a set, if I'm doing a wedding, whatever the gig is, technically it's not my creativity because I'm being paid to bring somebody else's vision to life. I'm a huge amount of personality, but I'm also incredibly professional. And I think that line gets blurred quite a lot because there's a lot of people that assume because I have a lot of personality that I'm not a professional. But it's not your entire identity and it doesn't have to be. And for nobody. And if the truth makes you uncomfortable, that's yours to sit with. My name is Elaine Cruz. I'm a professional makeup artist, and online, I'm a part-time semi-professional yapper. For me, I think creativity and play are two completely separate things. And they're two separate parts of who I am. People assume that I'm really creative because of my job, but what I think they don't realize is if I'm on a set, if I'm doing a wedding, whatever the gig is, technically it's not my creativity because I'm being paid to bring somebody else's vision to life through me, but it's not 100% mine. So to me, it's creatively, that's something completely separate work-wise than what it is in my personal life. And play for me is one of the most important things on the planet. And as adults, we do not do it enough because one of my life mottos is life is way too important to be taken seriously. And there has to be a bit of giddy goose and there has to be a little bit of silly sausage in there because playing and just being an absolute idiot, I think, is one of the only ways to make it through this absolute hellscape. Honestly, I'm not really sure, but it's one of the only things I can say, hand on heart, 10 toes down, that I am really good at what I do. I think as an artist, there's always more to learn. And I think the joy of makeup artistry, or I suppose any kind of artistry, whatever your medium is you never stop learning. There's always something new, whether that's products, techniques. And for me, every face is different. Every person is different. So every day and every job is a chance to learn something new. And I think that's what makes me good at what I do, because I know that I don't know it all. All the time, all the time. And I think a lot of people think I'm the personality hire. Which is a big one. I'm a huge amount of personality, but I'm also incredibly professional. And I think that line gets blurred quite a lot because there's a lot of people that assume because I have a lot of personality that I'm not a professional. Ireland, I don't think people realise the amount of performative inclusion, the amount of tokenism, and the amount of colourism. I think, again, as a makeup artist over the years where I'm, constantly changing products and building my kit, it makes me incredibly proud that, the vast majority, the biggest percentage of my kit is Irish brands, which I just think is an absolute credit to the amount of talent and the amount of creativity that's in Ireland. But where I feel let down a lot of the time is the constant promise of shade extensions, of what's coming but wasn't thought of in the first place. That sometimes I'm the darkest person in the room because I'm either the darkest shade that you have, or, there's always the extra two shades, which I like to call mocha token and for the sake of it. And then, there's a lot of incredible diverse models in Ireland. There's some absolutely beautiful and incredibly talented Black Irish models. And they book the jobs, but the shade range isn't always there for them, even though they're in the poster. I feel uncomfortable sometimes having that conversation because, like, trust and believe, when I'm in the room, I'm the only person that's saying it a lot of the time. But sometimes I feel uncomfortable that that conversation is coming from me because they all have a shade from me because I'm hashtag tan goals. So sometimes I feel there's a little bit of a invisible eye roll when I say it coming from other Black artists who the shades don't exist for, because that doesn't personally affect me, but it still affects me as an artist and as a person. Yeah, I think probably most of my life I've tried to shrink myself. And it's only as I've gotten older, and I won't say that I give less fucks because I don't. I still have plenty of them, but I've just redistributed them to where they're important. So the older I get, I think the less I feel that, because I ain't shrinking for nobody. I'm a whole lot of woman and I'm a whole lot of personality. And if the room isn't big enough, I'll just go to another one. I suppose it's just being able to see yourself in every space. And growing up in Ireland, obviously what Ireland looks like has massively changed over the last 20 odd years. And it still fills me with a little bit of fizzy joy. You know, when I get on a bus and there's so many different ethnicities, there's so many different skin tones and hair textures, and just seeing not necessarily somebody who looks like me, but somebody who doesn't look like what everybody else looks like. You know, I spent a lot of time in London growing up because my dad had moved there. And I still remember being about 6 or 7 and getting excited on the bus to just look at people. So it's being able to see not just somebody who looks like you, but somebody who doesn't look like everyone else everywhere. It's really exciting. I don't feel I've proven anything wrong because I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. And I think probably going back to what I said earlier, it's that you can be a whole person and you can show up authentically as yourself in every single room that you step into, as long as you get the job done and you do it really well. You know, one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten was from my brother, who's incredibly talented and unbelievably successful at what he does. His motto was always to be engaged, but be engaging. Because no matter what the job is, there's always somebody who can do it better than you. But at the end of the day, it always boils down to, who do you want to spend 12 hours with? And you can't do that. You don't book the gig again if you're not a bit of crack, or if you're not fun to be around, or if you're not engaged in what the whole gig is. All the time, all the time. And especially work related in, you know, more so when I go to like work events, like, no, I'm allergic to the word because I'm a reluctant content creator, but in kind of influencer world, again, it's been in makeup brands and cosmetic spaces where a lot of the time I am the only one. I think had this have been maybe 10, 15 years ago, I probably would have shrunk in that room a little bit. And I probably would have been internally seething at some of the things that I'm hearing, you know, whether it's microaggressions or just language that just does not fit where we live and what the world looks like. Now, I ain't keep my mouth shut for nothing and for nobody. And if the truth makes you uncomfortable, that's yours to sit with. That's difficult to answer because I think that you get to define what success is for yourself. For me, and this might sound ridiculous to some, I've redefined success the older that I've gotten. For me, at my big age and having been in the same industry for what, 19 years now, success for me is being able to pay my bills, be choosy about the work that I do, only step into jobs where I adore the people and I love the work, and being able to live alone and rent in Dublin. For me, that's success, where I don't live in a scarcity mindset anymore, where I think so many entrepreneurs and self-employed people do. For me, that's success. It's not having to say yes to everything because I know I'll be all right. I think I would want them to know that our ethnicity and our culture and our background and just physically what we look like, how much of that molds who you are, but it's not your entire identity and it doesn't have to be. All of you is not where you come from. You can be a whole person outside of that. Because I do see, again, I'm a nana, I'm a middle-aged woman, so it's not like I'm hanging out with younger generations, but I'm also chronically online. And I see that in a lot of Irish spaces, like online with creators, is, you know, the joy of social media and having access to so many more people is we can see ourselves and we can fit ourselves into certain spaces. But I think there's a tendency then to become what you think you should be. And I think what it all boils down to is, yeah, culture can shape who you are, but authenticity comes from knowing who you are. So you may see yourself in certain spaces, but that doesn't mean you have to be in them. And you can show up as whoever you are, wherever you are.